the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brand John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
It is the BJ. Let me try that again. It is the BJ Show for Thursday, February 27th. Is that right, John? We got one more day left. Could that be correct?
That's correct. We hit March this weekend.
Wow, holy cow. This is the BJ Show. You can check us out on the internet at bjshow.co. Or the YouTube channel is bjshow.video. We do this show live. The reason I mention that is because some people think we only do podcasts, but no, it is done live between 7 and 8 o'clock. The reason I mention the time and the date is because of the fact that way you have a reference. If you do listen to the future, you know what we're talking about that particular day. And you go like, well, that's old news. No, we are on top of the news. John is the news. Every single day he puts together this incredible list of the top 30, 40 different events going on in the state of Missouri, different things, different controversies, stories, people in trouble, people not in trouble, and he puts together this list every single morning. What we do, we get together with this guy every morning. What's your name again, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what do you do?
We're on our way to the number one.
And we start off with?
In third place.
One of your favorite topics, Brad, a Brad trope, if you will, is how sometimes when Missourians pass things at the ballot box, initiatives, they're not very specific, or they leave out some pretty specific stuff. How do you define this? How do you define that? One of those topics that we haven't discussed in a few months is at the forefront this week in the Missouri legislature. Lawmakers are discussing regulating hemp products. You'll remember, Brad, that the crux of this debate is whether or not convenience stores, grocery stores can sell hemp-derived products that have a little bit of THC in them, that active ingredient in marijuana. Now, if a product has a lot of THC and can get you really high, you got to go to a state-approved dispensary to get your fix. You can't get super high just by going to your local bodega and picking up a hemp beverage. So there's legislation before lawmakers that would clarify what exactly is a bunch of THC, what exactly is a little bit of THC, and who can sell it. Now, Brad, you've done a masterful job pointing out that like many other industries, the cannabis industry, maybe you could call them big cannabis, critics would call them the cannabis cartel, they want one set of regulations which would put pretty strict definitions around this stuff and pretty much make sure that the only thing that would be sold outside of dispensaries would be these beverages with a low level of THC. Now, the hemp industry and folks in, for example, the Missouri Hemp Trade Association say, no. We need to be able to offer folks a low level of THC and go around the cannabis cartel. We should allow grocery stores, convenience stores, and others to sell products, not just beverages, but maybe edibles, maybe vapes, maybe oils that have THC in them. As you have accurately predicted, Brad, because of the vagueness around the original Amendment 2, which was years ago, not Amendment 2 in 2024, but the one in 2022, because of the vagueness, there's these industries and folks with a lot of money at stake that are arguing about these definitions. So I would point folks to Rebecca Rivas's piece, which is in the Missouri Independent today. And she goes through, she does a really thorough job pointing out what the cannabis industry, the existing cannabis industry in Missouri wants to see in legislation, what the hemp trade folks want to see, and why there's so much argument between both of those groups.
John, do you want my opinion on this?
I do.
You know I'm a libertarian. You know that, right?
I do know that.
And I think this is sort of ridiculous. This is what I want. I want someone with, shall we say, the guts and other anatomical parts, anatomical parts to come forward and said, you know what? We need to go way back in history. Coca-Cola had cocaine. I'm for saying Coca-Cola, you can put cocaine back in your soda again and sell it everywhere. You know, just sell it everywhere. What do you think, John?
I think it would increase productivity, that's for sure. I mean, and it would probably reduce the number of deviated septums because idiots wouldn't be snorting it. Yeah, I think what's fascinating here, Brad, is that, again, you've pointed this out many times. I think presciently you've pointed it out, and that when folks create these ballot initiatives, it's almost as if they're creating this gray space so that they can fight about it in the courts and that attorneys can make millions of dollars in legal fees arguing about it.
Well, but to a certain extent, isn't this just the classic incrementalism where, we move this far and we're going to move this over here. We're going to move this a couple inches, going to move this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's a better example of something that we've discussed before. No matter what industry you're in, if it's something that people would generally consider that it would need to be regulated. So if it's alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, heck, look at biotechnology, agriculture products. If you have a major company or a major industry, they don't want little guys coming in and being able to siphon off a little bit of money here and there. If you're that major industry, you get together with your cohorts in a legal way, your other major cohorts, and say, what regulatory hurdles can we put in place in the name of safety to keep these little peons from siphoning off our cash?
Yeah, I know, it's sad. I've been on the small end of that business for a long time. I mean, and it is very frustrating because you see the big guys who are able to use their muscle. I mean, with the FCC, they've changed the rules of the FCC to the point where that's got us where the mess we're in right now, where almost all the radio stations in St. Louis are owned by 3 companies. And what's sort of interesting about this is that seems to be the way everything's going. HVAC companies, there's going to be I think there's going to be 2 companies. There's going to be Jerry Kelly and one other company in the entire St. Louis area. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying what it does is it freezes out the small guys, which I'm a small guy, so I'm not real happy with that.
I know, and every time I go to Central Hardware and look for my bolts, they tell me, nope, just go to Walmart.
There's a perfect example. But yet what's interesting about that is I had a friend of mine that worked for Ace Hardware, and he would tell the story that the CEO of the company, and the CEO would tell the story to the executive. This guy was an executive, and the CEO would tell the story that he would be flying somewhere and he'd be, in a plane, and his seatmate would say, hey, what do you do? Well, I'm the CEO of Ace Hardware. And the guy would go, oh my God, it's so sad that you're getting killed by Home Depot and Lowe's. He goes, no, we're doing very well. And the reason being because they have a niche where if you go into a Home Depot or a Lowe's, you have to say, hello, can anybody help me? But if you go into an Ace Hardware, there's somebody there who will help you and guide you through the process. And a lot of people will pay a little bit more for that, so that's their niche, but they've sort of found it. But still, even Ace Hardware is a big dog. I mean, they've got a bunch of stores all over the St. Louis area, stuff like that.
The only thing disappointing about that story is if I was the Ace Hardware CEO and somebody asked me what I did, I would say I was in auto. I would say that I'm in I sell homeware products. Why do you have to tell people you're a CEO?
Why not?
Well, because it's just braggadocious. Why can't you say, oh, I work for Ace Hardware? Why would you tell people, puff your chest out and say, I am the CEO. I'm the regional business manager of this paper company. Okay. No, hey, I work in the hardware business. I sell some hardware parts. What do you do? And put the focus on the other person. Why do you have to flex your status?
Okay, John, so you're on a plane and you're sitting next to a guy and he looks like he's Latin American and he talks with an accent and you say, hey, what do you do? And the guy says, well, I'm Yadier Molina. I'm the catcher for the Cardinals. Is he flexing, John?
Yeah. And first of all, I doubt. First of all, it's a terrible analogy because Yadier Molina doesn't need people to say, wow, you play baseball for the Cardinals. Thanks for telling me your name. No, Yachty would probably just say, oh, I play baseball. And then he would probably be so genuine that he would say, hey, what do you do? And then you'd say, oh, I'm the regional manager I work for iHeart and I lead the deputy associate sales team. And we're not making any money because radio is a terrible business and all we do is lose money every year. But hey, you play baseball? That's cool.
Okay, John, we agreed to...
We're ready for story number 2.
We agreed to disagree on that one. Okay, number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
From the other side of the state, another one of Brad's favorite topics. I'm just teeing this up for you, Brad. I'll give you a hint. The initials are FA and where this all should go. But folks from the other side of the state got together, thanks to Governor Mike Kehoe, to talk about the future of the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs Will they stay in Missouri, or will they be lured by the state of Kansas to move across the state line and play their games in the Sunflower State? Mike Kehoe got folks together, and Mike Kehoe didn't have an official statement afterwards. Or I should say, he chose not to do on-camera interviews. His office did have statements about it. But it looks like in the Kansas City area, the governor is encouraging one of the outcomes to be putting a sales tax measure on a ballot. So it would encourage the Chiefs and the Royals to stay with a little bit of additional sales tax in Jackson County and the surrounding region. But let me be more specific. In Jackson County, now a tax increase failed last year. So the talk yesterday, apparently, was how to do a better job communicating both what it would mean to taxpayers, what it would mean to residents of the area, and, of course, the importance of keeping the Chiefs and Royals. So, Brad, if that doesn't work out, is there something that folks in the St. Louis region should do to maybe, I don't know, attract a team or two?
John, you're just throwing things at me that I'm gonna, you're throwing rainbows at me that I'm gonna hit out of the park.
Do you have an opinion on this one, Brad?
John, I do, but I tell you what, my opinion is a little bit multifaceted because let's pick this up in the B block because of the fact that me as a libertarian is like, okay, I don't think the Royals are the Kansas City Chiefs are hurting for revenue. You know what I'm saying? It's to the point where if this were like some company that was like, they lost money for the last 3 years and they employed like 1,000 people in the Kansas City area and the state could come in and help them, I'd be more interested in that. But you know what? This is stupid. And you know exactly what I'm going to say on this because I'll say it in B block. But, I will say this once again. If women ran government, if it was Michelle Kehoe instead of Mike Kehoe, and all the people in the government were women, they would go, Chiefs, Royals, move wherever you want to. We don't care. But it's all these dudes. Oh, we got to have sports teams. That's the whole problem.
I don't know. Also, if women ran government, everything would be super bloated for like 3 days a month.
No. Well, perfect example, the Washmo example I give all the time. You have Mayor Stratman, who was like this, down and dirty mayor. We need to make things, we need to build infrastructure. We need to put in better sewers. We need to put a better sewage treatment system. And then Sandy Lucy gets in as governor or as mayor, and all she talks about is we need more flowers. We need more trees. But honest to God, matter of fact, there's still, as you go on the Washmo in 100, there's these two strips. It's one of my favorite stupid stories. One of these two strips in the median where they carved out the center lane of the median for a planting strip. And her pitch to the city was, well, it's going to cost $1 million, but only $900,000 of it is going to come from federal money, so it won't be out of our pockets. And I'm thinking to myself, let me think about this for a minute.
That's a good deal. That's what is called on the social medias, Brad. On TikTok, that's what's called girl math.
Well, where does the federal government get its money? You know what I'm saying? It's like
the sky. They print it, Brad. Haven't you paid attention the last few years?
It's like there's nobody in Washington that pays federal taxes, And the crazy thing about that is every time I go into Washmo, and it'll happen within like the next month, where they close down the center lanes, the left lanes of east and westbound 100, and they probably have 10 guys in the median tearing out the plants and putting new plants in because the government required them to plant these weird plants. They were, what do they call them? They're like, there's a term.
They attract pollinators.
No. They're what desert
native grasses? Are they native?
They're native, not necessarily native grasses, but native plants, and they look like weeds. It's not like roses and daisies and stuff like that. It's this stuff that looks horrible, and it's like, okay, I don't get it. I could go down to my transmitter site and I could say, okay, this little section right here, I'm not going to cut it for a year, and I'm just going to pull all this stuff and plant it there, and I'm going to charge you $100,000 every year, and they go, oh, what a deal. I don't get it. Okay, but I'm not, see, that's not me. I'm my philosophy about trees and things like that.
Cut them down, right?
My chainsaws have never met a tree that they didn't like. Okay, last but not least.
The number one.
Speaking of federal directives, they're continuing, Brad, to have a deleterious effect, on a chilling effect on the local communities. But there's some people that are standing up. For example, Maplewood. Boy, that was a Freudian slip. The Maplewood Richmond Heights School District. They are considering a resolution that would make the district a, quote, safe house for anyone who's being targeted by immigration officials. Now, the details on this are sketchy, and intentionally so, according to the superintendent, because they don't want to reveal exactly what the plans are to provide a rapid response team. But the general principle is this. If any student who happens to be less than legal in the Maplewood Richmond Heights district, if they're facing a crisis like, let's say, immigration officials came to their house and took away their illegal immigrant parents, the district would have a rapid response team. And the mission of the rapid response team would be to provide wraparound services. Now, Brad, that sounds like something that you offer your lady friends on a cold night. But it turns out that the district is saying, hey, by the way, we can't completely take credit for this idea. Guess where the language from the resolution came from, Brad?
NEA?
Ding, 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 ding. Brad wins an NEA prize. Maybe you win a St. Louis Public Radio tote bag. Yes, the district superintendent, who's a woman named Bonita Jameson, she says technically the language has been, quote, borrowed from the National Education Association because the NEA wants people to, take a stand against President Trump. Let people know no matter what the Trump administration does, school districts will be there to provide support for their students. Now, what's interesting to me is, so credit Miss Jameson for pointing out the fact that this is NEA language. I mean, I think a simple Google search eventually would have shown that this is just an NEA template, a cut and paste thing that districts are encouraged to do. But surprisingly, this piece in the Post-Dispatch, and it's by Monica Obradovic, she points out that Maplewood Richmond Heights would be the first district in the St. Louis area to use the NEA language. Now, apparently in St. Louis City, they passed some sort of resolution that has some similar language, but St. Louis City didn't use the NEA template cut and paste model. But Maplewood Richmond Heights is using that NEA template. So I would expect, Brad, the curious thing about this is, not only would I expect other districts to see this and then follow suit and say, hey, we can't let Maplewood Richmond Heights get all the progressive love and attention, but it also tells me that other districts have seen this, maybe in suburban areas, and said, whoa, okay, NEA, I know you want us to do this, but I don't think that's going to fly out here in Town and Country. I don't think that's going to fly out here in Wentzville. You get what I'm saying, Brad?
I would love to be a student in Maplewood Richmond Heights because you know what I do? If I had a term paper to turn, if I was like in high school in Maplewood Richmond Heights, if I had a term paper, I just copied everything off the internet. And then when my teacher says, you've just plagiarized this, and I go, no, I didn't plagiarize it. I borrowed it. Right?
I borrowed it, yes.
I just borrowed that.
I borrowed the language from the NEA.
Right. No, I did. I borrowed it from well, you don't have encyclopedias anymore, but I just borrowed it from another source. Well, that's plagiarism. No, it's not. I just borrowed it. They don't mind. Ask them.
Yeah,
Man.
they want us to copy it.
Right,
Yeah. So I would assume that we'll see more of this. And again, it's pretty vague what they mean by providing a rapid response team. But to me, this seems like one of those things that they also made a commitment that they won't ever ask a student for their immigration status, which the writer points out, Monica Obradovic points out, is already illegal. No district goes around asking students for their immigration status when they enroll. But so this is one of those symbolism things. It makes progressives in the district feel good. My district is doing something. We're not like Francis Howell or Fort Zumwalt.
That has a new superintendent every 6 months, right?
Yeah, that's true. Hey.
Or Wentzville that pays their old superintendent $1 million to walk away, right?
To go away, yeah.
Okay. And I have a little bit more inside information than I should because, believe it or not, we have a candidate who's going to be running for the Wentzville school board is that right, Wentzville? Yeah, Wentzville. I recorded a commercial for him, which is going to start in a couple weeks. This is for the April election. So, and he gave me a little bit of insight into that. I mean, it's interesting because of the fact that he's a parent in he lives in Wentzville and he has kids in the Wentzville school district, but he works in another school district, which is sort of interesting. Okay, we're going to take a break.